ye, hear ye. The following scene is a reenactment of Perry versus Schwarzenegger, the Prop 8 trial heard in U.S. District Court. Plaintiff Kristen Perry, a gay Californian who was directly affected by the passage of Proposition 8, is under direct examination by the plaintiff's lawyer, Theodore Olson. The plaintiffs in this case are two loving same-sex couples who simply want to marry, just as any heterosexual couple in America has the right to do. Court is now in session. State your name.
Kristen Matthews Perry.
Spell your first name and your last name.
Kristinperry.
Thank you. Ms. Perry, are you a plaintiff in this case?
Yes, I am.
Would you tell us just briefly about your background? Where you were born, just a brief summary, your age, your educational background, just a brief summary, please.
I was born in Illinois, but my parents moved here with me when I was 2 years old. So I've lived in California since I was 2 years old, and I'm 45 years old now. I grew up in Bakersfield, California. I attended grammar school, middle school, high school there. And then I moved away to go to college at UC Santa Cruz. And from there I went to San Francisco State to get my master's degree in social work. And I've worked in the Bay Area ever since.
Describe you don't have to identify the name of your employer, but you work for a government agency. I would like you to describe the work that you do, your profession.
My entire career I've worked in the field of child protection, child development, family support. I started out as a child abuse investigator in a Bay Area county, and from there I moved into prevention services for families there that were at risk. I became a supervisor and a program manager, and then later on became the executive director of a county agency that supports at-risk children, 0 to 5. At this time, I am the executive director of a statewide agency that provides services and support to families with children 0 to 5.
So how long have you been professionally engaged in the occupation of working with children?
For almost 25 years.
California, did I hear that correctly?
I've spent my entire career working for the government.
What is your relationship with the plaintiff, Sandra Steyer?
Sandy is the woman I love, and we live together in Berkeley.
And what is the composition of your family? Is it just the two of you?
No, Sandy and I live together in Berkeley with our children. We have a blended family. We both brought 2 sons into our relationship. Sandy's children are college age, and my children are in high school age.
When did you meet Ms. Steyer?
Sandy and I met in, I think, 1996, while we were both working at the same place.
And describe how that relationship, again in general terms, how did that relationship grow, and what did it grow into?
Well, I remember the first time I met Sandy thinking she was maybe the sparkliest person I ever met, and I wanted to be her friend. And we were friends for a few years. And our friendship became more and more, it became deeper and deeper over time. And then after a few years, I began to feel that I might be falling in love with her.
And did it work out that way?
And it did work out that way. I did fall in love with her. I did.
And how did she feel about you?
She told me she loved me too.
We will be asking her to verify that.
Okay.
How would you describe your sexual orientation?
I'm a lesbian.
And tell me what that means in your own words. What does it mean to be a lesbian?
Well, for me what it means is I've always felt strong attraction and interest in women and formed really close relationships with women, and I have only ever fallen in love with women. And the happiest I feel is in my relationship with Sandy and because I'm in love with her.
Do you feel that that's something that could change? That you could you have been in the past interested in that same kind of bonding with men? Or do you feel that that would be, I know this is somewhat compound, or do you feel that that could turn into, that would develop in that way in the future?
Which question do you want her to answer?
Do you feel that in the past you could have developed that same kind of bond with a man?
I wasn't able to do that. As I said, growing up in Bakersfield, California, and it was in the 70s and 80s, and all my friends, as we were getting older and they were beginning to date, become more and more interested in boys. And I recognized that that was something that would have been the best thing for me to do if I could. And I did date a few boys because it did easier, you know. Then I would have to go to the prom or I could go to a party. But as I got a little bit older, it became clear to me that I didn't feel the same way my friends did about boys. And that there was something different about me.
Do you feel that you were born with those feelings, with that kind of sexual orientation?
Yes, I do.
Do you feel that it could change in the future? Do you have a sense that it somehow might change?
I'm 45 years old. I don't think so.
Why are you a plaintiff in this case?
Because I want to marry Sandy. I want to have a stable and secure relationship with her that then we can include our children in. And I want the discrimination we are feeling with Proposition 8 to end and for a more positive, joyful part of our lives to begin.
What does the institution of marriage mean to you? Why do you want that?
Well, I have never really let myself want it until now. Growing up as a lesbian, you don't let yourself want it because everyone tells you you're never going to have it. So in some ways it's hard for me to grasp what it would even mean. But I do see other people who are married, and I think what it looks like is that you are honored and respected by your family. Your children know what your relationship is. And when you leave your home and you go to work or you go out in the world, people know what your relationship means. And so then everyone can, in a sense, join in supporting your relationship, which at this point I can only observe it as an outsider. I don't have any first-hand experience with what that must be like.
Does it matter that the state is announcing that this relationship is officially recognized by the state of California as marriage?
Yes.
And is that part of something that goes into why you want this to happen for you?
I want it to happen for me because I do everything else I can think to do to make myself a contributing, responsible member of the state. And the state isn't letting me feel happy. It's not letting me experience my full potential because I'm not permitted to experience everything I might feel if this barrier were removed.
Did you and Ms. Dyer ever attempt to be married?
We did.
Tell us what happened, when that was, and exactly what your experience was.
Well, in 2003, I proposed to Sandy without any way of knowing that everything that's developed regarding gay marriage in California was about to develop me. And instead, I did it as a way to express my personal interest in marrying her.
Tell me about your proposal. What happened?
Well, it was around Christmas, and we live in a part of Berkeley that's sort of hilly, and we live near this big rock called Indian Rock. And if you get up high enough on it, you can sit there. You can see everything in the Bay Area laid out in front of you. And I knew I wanted to propose to her there because we would always walk back there and sit there if we wanted to. So I took her on a walk. She didn't know I had a ring, and we sat down on the rock, and I put my arm around her, and I said, "Will you marry me?" She looked really happy, and then she looked really confused, and she said, "Well, what does that?" Well, she said yes, and then she said, "Well, what does that mean? How will we even do that?" And then we had to invent it for ourselves. We had to figure out what to do.
So that was in December of 2003. So what did you and, I'm going to call her Sandy, what did you and Sandy do to then invent the relationship that you were hoping to have with her that you had proposed?
We started with basically trying to figure out the day we would like to be married and the place and who we would like to have join us and what we might say to each other. So we just started the planning. And as we were in the midst of doing that, private family and friend ceremony planning, we learned that the city and county of San Francisco, they were permitting same-sex marriages. That was while we were in the middle of planning.
And this was early in 2004.
That's correct.
And you learned that in some way the mayor of the city of San Francisco had authorized the issuance of marriage licenses and the performance of marriage in San Francisco. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes.
That was in the early part of 2004.
Yes, for us it was February 2004.
And what, did you act on that information?
I did. Sandy and I both were reading about it in the newspaper, and we talked about whether or not we would go to San Francisco to have this marriage and then continue with our other plans. And that's what we decided we wanted to do. So we made an appointment and we went to City Hall, and we brought all of the boys and my mom, and we were married in City Hall.
And how did you feel about that marriage coming about in the City Hall of San Francisco at that time?
Well, as amazed and happy as I could ever imagine feeling. And I said a moment ago that I never let myself imagine it happening. So in some ways, the feelings I had were new to me. I didn't really know what they were. And I'm still confused by these experiences because they are not the ones that I have been, I haven't let myself want to feel them. So I have a sense that it's almost an otherworldly experience of like floating above the ceremony saying, "Oh, that's me getting married. I never thought that would happen."
Did you then, after that ceremony, go forward with this private ceremony that you had planned?
We did. We continued those plans because only a few, our kids and my mom attended the ceremony in City Hall. We wanted to continue with the other ceremony so that more people could come and we could see everybody.
Did you have a party, a ceremony, and an exchange of vows?
We did. We planned an afternoon in Berkeley where our friends and family had joined us, and we had a small ceremony, and then we all came inside and there's a big celebration.
How many? How many people?
There were 100 guests.
What month was that?
It was August 1st.
Of 2004?
Yes.
After that, was there a decision by a California court having to do with the ceremony that you entered into in San Francisco at City Hall?
Yes, a few weeks after our August ceremony, the state Supreme Court ruled that the San Francisco weddings were invalid.
What was your reaction when you heard that?
Well, the part of me that was disbelieving and unsure of it in the first place was confirmed. That, in fact, I really, almost when you're gay, you think you don't really deserve things. So it did have this sense of, well, I really didn't deserve to be married.
Did you receive notification, official notification, that your marriage was null and void?
Yeah, the city and county of San Francisco sent us a letter after the ruling, and it was a form letter, and our names were typed at the top. It said, "We're sorry to inform you that your marriage is not valid, and we would like to return your marriage fees to you. Would you like them in a check or donated to a charity?" And so that's when we knew for sure we weren't married in San Francisco anymore.
And what feelings did that evoke, that experience?
I'm not good enough to be married.
Sometime in 2008, the California Supreme Court rendered a decision, I think it was May of 2008, that marriage could be obtained by same-sex individuals irrespective of sexual orientation. Do you remember that decision?
I do.
What did you feel when you heard that the California Supreme Court said that you had a constitutional right to marry the person of your choice?
I was elated to hear it. I really was. And I know Sandy was too because we talked about the ruling when it happened. And after we had known about it for a while, we started to hear our friends talk about their plans to get married, and we were very excited for them. And then, of course, we asked ourselves, would we get married again? And it didn't take more than really a few minutes for us to, it was unanimous that we couldn't. We couldn't bring ourselves to do it again right then. The experience in 2004 we hadn't really recovered from it. And it didn't feel at that time, given what was going on outside of the Supreme Court ruling in the political world, that there was necessarily a permanent solution there. And we had experienced the impermanent solution before, and we decided not to go forward at that time.
Were you aware that people were organizing in an effort to overturn that Supreme Court decision?
Yes, I was aware there was a campaign starting.
What became Proposition 8? You're aware that there was an effort going on to put a measure on the ballot to overturn the California Supreme Court decision.
I remember media reports of groups or individuals saying we disagree and we'll have to take action, and the sort of beginnings of what resulted in a ballot initiative.
And that was a ballot initiative that came on the ballot in November of that same year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, what was it like for you to be a citizen, to watch and listen to the campaign to overturn that California? Can you just relate your reactions to what was going on around you in the political world on that subject?
Well, I'm a California resident, so I could see evidence of the campaign. I commute on a local highway, and I would see bumper stickers every day. I did see some of the television ads. One in particular I remember. I saw some posters on people's lawns, but that was about it.
What did you say you remember one ad in particular. What do you remember about that?
Well, it struck me as being sort of an education-focused ad because there was a moment where they showed the ed code in the ad.
The education code?
The California Education Code, which I'm sort of interested in. So that got me interested in that ad, and it did talk about needing to protect your children from learning about gay marriage in school. That was the gist of the ad.
How did you feel about that? You work with children every day.
I do. Well, I work on their behalf. I remember feeling that the ad was attempting to create a sense of fear and worry in me, and that the solution to that would be to vote yes on 8. It was kind of a this or that kind of feeling. They kind of simplified this complex thing about relationships into a bad thing. And then they said, if you want to fix a bad thing, do this. And I felt essentially that it was very simplified.
As a parent, did you have a reaction to the Proposition 8 campaign?
I did. I felt that it didn't represent how I feel about my children or their friends, but I feel compelled all of the time to be protective of them without thinking. And so this message was that maybe I was in a group of people who wouldn't be protective of children, and it didn't match the way I feel about them.
Did you feel that voters were being warned that they needed to protect their children from you?
Yes, I did. And I felt like I was being used. That the fact that I'm gay and the way I am, and I can't change the way I am, I was being mocked and made fun of and disparaged in a way that I didn't really have any way to respond to it. I just had to know that people felt that way.
Do you, as you go through life every day, feel that the other effects of discrimination on the basis of your sexual orientation?
Every day.
Tell us about that.
Well, when I was an adolescent and beginning to become more and more aware of my sexuality, I struggled to feel like everybody else, to look and feel like everyone else. And for it to even be a struggle in the first place was hard. And I was well aware of the comments and jokes that were circulating through my school at the time, and some of them were directed at me. As I got older and clearer about who I was, and I could say I was a lesbian out loud, that would be met at times with criticism or skepticism. And what I want to say about me and being out is, I go to great lengths to not have that happen. I don't want to draw people's criticism. In fact, quite the opposite. I really would like people to like me. So since I know I have this trait that I can't change, that people don't like, I go to great lengths to have other traits people do like. So I put a significant amount of time and energy into being likable so that when the discriminatory things happen, either I can turn it around. So if, for example, I'm on a plane and somebody comes up and I've saved a seat for Sandy, but she's not there yet, and they say, is that saved? I say yes, and they say, for whom? And I say, for my partner, and they say, could you please move so I can sit here? Or if we're in a restaurant or in a store and we travel to the store together, people want to know if we're sisters or cousins or friends. And I have to decide every day if I want to come out everywhere I go and take the chance that somebody will have a hostile reaction to my sexuality, or just go there and buy the microwave we went there to buy without having to go through that again. And the decision every day to come out or not, at work, at home, at PTA, at music, at soccer, it's exhausting. So much of the time I just choose to do as much of that as I can handle doing in any given day.
Was coming out something that it took a long time for you to do? Was it difficult?
It was sort of gradual, but probably not so long. I think probably by the time I was 18 or 19, I did know that. I was able to talk to myself about that. And then I could tell other people over the next few years. But it is what you often hear lesbians and gays say. I feel like once I realized that about myself, then I could say, I think I've been gay from the beginning. But it was a gradual process at first.
You've had to explain this to your children?
Yes.
Was that difficult?
Well, they don't know me in any other way. So, it's different probably if you were living as a heterosexual person. But for me, I've always been their mom, and their entire lives I've always been out, so.
Have you and Sandy entered into a registered domestic partnership in California?
Yes.
Tell us when you did that.
That was in August of 2004.
Was that easy to do? Does California make it simple?
Yeah, it was, I think it was a form
That you submit to the state?
that we completed it. I think we had to have it notarized, and then we mailed it in.
What does domestic partnership mean to you compared to marriage?
Well, we are registered domestic partners based on just legal advice that we received for creating an estate plan. So we saw a lawyer who works with couples and those things, and we completed a number of forms and a durable power of attorney, last will and testament, and she recommended we also do the domestic partnership agreement at the same time. So there were just a number of those things, those kinds of documents that we completed.
So you regard it as something of a property transaction or an estate planning transaction?
It was, well, that's when we did ours during that process, and it was, I believe it has some unique features creatures that it was a little different than durable power of attorney or a will, so we completed it. It allows us to access each other's health benefits and some other benefits through our employers.
Is it as good as marriage?
Well, to me, they're not the same thing at all. You know, I viewed the domestic partnership agreement as precisely that, an agreement, a legal agreement, and in some ways memorializes some of our responsibilities to each other, but it isn't the same thing as a celebration or something. We don't remember the day it happened or invite people over on that day. We just did that as part of the things we did as a couple to protect ourselves since we can't get married.
One of the issues that the court is going to have to deal with is how that domestic partnership relationship is different to you than marriage. And why is it that you want marriage so much when you have this opportunity?
Well, I don't have access to the words that describe my relationship right now. I'm a 45-year-old woman. I have been in love with a woman for 10 years, and I don't have a word to tell anybody about that. I don't have a word.
Would the word do it?
Well, why would everybody be getting married if it didn't do anything? I think it must do something. It appears to be really important to people, and I would really like to use that word too, because it symbolizes maybe the most important decision you make as an adult. Who do you choose? No one does it for you. You weren't born with that as your cousin and your uncle, your aunt. You choose them over everybody else, and you want to feel that it's going to stick, and that you will have the protection and the support and the inclusion that comes from letting other people know that you feel that way.
Do you think it would matter in your neighborhood, in your community, that you would be able to say that you and Sandy were married? Would it cause people to treat you differently?
I think it would be an enormous relief to our friends who are married. Our straight, heterosexual friends that are married almost view us in a way that I know they love us, but I think they feel sorry for us, and I can't stand it. You know, many of them are either in their second marriage or their first marriage, but nevertheless, they have a word and they belong to this institution, this group. And I can think of a time recently when I went with Sandy happily to a football game at the high school where two of our kids go, and we went up to the bleachers and we were greeted with these smiling faces of other parents sitting there waiting for the game to start. And I was so acutely aware that I thought, they are all married and I'm not.
It sounds to me like your heterosexual friends don't feel threatened if you were to get married. That same-sex marriage doesn't sound like it threatens them.
No. The friends we have, I think, would feel better about their marriages if we could be married too. They would feel like they get to help support our family in a way that is familiar to them, makes sense to them. Right now, they're a little bit unsure, just like we are, of what we all should be doing because we're outside of any sort of tradition. It's just sort of this thing we invented that no one but us understands.
You have heard the argument, I think, probably in various different places, that allowing you to get married to a person of the same sex would damage the institution, the traditional institution of marriage. Do you agree?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for expert. Sustained.
Have you discussed with Sandy the impact on the marriage relationship itself if you were to prevail in this lawsuit?
Yes, of course we have. We've talked about it. And Sandy has been married before, and so, you know, I really envy her having had that experience. But we both believe that there would be settling and a deepening of our commitment if we could get through this instead like it's everybody else's decision.
Did you, prior to filing this lawsuit, seek a marriage license?
Yes.
What happened? Describe that.
We went to the Alameda County Recorder's Office in May, having reached the point where we wanted to see if there was a permanent solution to the problem and wanted to know in a more concrete way how Prop 8 was being enacted. And we indeed pulled a number, filled out a form, and waited for our turn. And the clerk that day, we sat down in front of her and she opened up her computer and looked at the form and we were trying to get, and her eyes got really big and she looked at us and she said, "I'm sorry, but there are reasons why I don't think I can do what you're asking me to do, but I'm not comfortable not doing it, so I'm gonna go get my boss. He's going to have to do it." So she left the cubicle and she went upstairs and there was a long delay and she came downstairs with her supervisor And he had written down this Prop 8, the statute, I think, and he read from it. And he was very nervous and very upset and I'm sure, worried that we would be upset as well, which we were. And he said after reading the statute, "I'm very sorry that I cannot give you this license. I hope someday I can, and I hope you will come back."
Have you thought about the impact upon you, of you and Sandy and your relationship, of bringing a lawsuit and being a plaintiff in a civil rights case and what that's like?
I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and Sandy and I really like our life where we live in our house and we see our kids and we see our friends. We don't want anything to change about our life. In fact, we would really like our life to just get better and better. And I think about whether or not what we want to have happen would make it possible for other people to have that happen. That makes me really happy. But it most importantly comes from a place of just wanting our lives to feel better than they do right now.
If the courts of the United States were ultimately decided that you and other persons seeking to marry someone of the same sex did indeed have the constitutional right to get married, do you think that would have an effect on other acts of discrimination against you?
Objection, Your Honor. Quote, that objection overruled.
I believe for me, personally as a lesbian, that if I had grown up in a world where the most important decision I was going to make as an adult was treated the same way as everybody else's decision, that I would not have been treated the way I was growing up or as an adult. There's something so humiliating about everybody knowing that you want to make that decision and you don't get to do that. You know, it's hard to face the people at work and the people even here right now. And many of you have this, but I don't. So I have to still find a way to feel okay and not take every bit of discriminatory behavior toward me too personally, because in the end that will only hurt me and my family. So if Prop 8 were undone and kids like me growing up in Bakersfield right now could never know what this felt like, then I assume that their entire lives would be on a higher arc. They would live with a higher sense of themselves that would improve the equality of their entire life.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.